Hello and welcome to my review of the Ides of April by Lindsey Davis. Lindsey Davis is the author of the Falco series that began with the Silver Pigs way back in 1989 and continued through 20 volumes to 2010's Nemesis. I probably read the first 8 or 9 of those, as well as The Course of Honor from 1998, before getting a touch fatigued with the series and moving on to something else. However, issue 1s sell better than issue 21s, so it's not really a surprise to see a new generation being released, but it piqued the interest, and with fond memories of the early Falco books tickling my nostalgia bone, I was quite excited to check them out. The plot follows Flavia Albia, Falco and Helena's adopted British-born daughter, now working as an investigator in Rome herself. This is something of a historical anomaly. Acknowledged in the book, this is an unlikely position for a woman to take in Roman society, but not necessarily impossible. A handful of people have died in slightly mysterious circumstances around Flavia's home and office. At first there's some debate if a crime has even been committed, but after initially warning Flavia to stay away from the investigation, a female presence becomes useful and the officials rope her in. In the meantime, Flavia has fallen in love with the temple archivist, and the book is much more soap opera than it ever is an investigation or a whodunit. Of course, Andronicus was my type of hero, attractive, amusing, nice-looking, around my own age, of low-class origins, and hungry for self-improvement. The fact that my family would cluck that I had not known him long enough only made the situation swooningly attractive. After connecting the dots, Flavia finds the perp, and justice is, eventually, served, pretty much as you'd expect if you have any foreknowledge of this series at all. After the first couple of Falco books, they too had a habit of putting plot into second place behind the developing relationship between Falco and Helena. However, they retained a satirical eye on the era, inviting a comparison between the people of ancient time and contemporary. And additionally, when the story wasn't up to the usual standards, the sparring between the future spouses, as well as Falco's amiable persona, carried the interest more often than not. With that said, probably the most disappointing thing about this book is that the Falco formula is utterly unchanged. Falco has simply been replaced in his old job by Flavia. She doesn't do anything differently, and nor does Davis. There are minor points, such as being sent to one witness because the vigils think that she will talk more freely to another woman, but beyond this, the gender swap is an irrelevance, as well as being anachronistic as mentioned. Additionally, it might have been fun to include Falco in the gang. I can see why Davis might prefer a clean break, but Falco as tutor, good or bad, and now with his daughter as a partner, might have been interesting. I should point out that when I bailed on this series, Falco and Helena had kind of worked together on a few books, but in a mostly unofficial capacity. That might have changed after that point, in which case the tutor-pupil dynamic might have already been done. From the books that I've read previously, I don't remember either of the adopted Falco children that appear here, so I don't know how Flavia has been represented before, or if she comes with an attached nostalgia of her own. What is a problem is that Flavia is not as engaging as Falco. Falco was a kind of bumbling everyman, initially drifting through his job while dreaming of being a poet. By contrast, Flavia was raised by wild dogs apparently, and is prone to fits of unwarranted anger. The love interest has similar issues, as well as establishing himself as something of a wimp. I, myself, had had a grisly run-in with that awful woman. I can hardly bear to remember it. She laid into me something terrible, left me shaking. Their relationship never gets beyond the staidest version of 50 Shades imaginable. His kissing was light and fluttery compared with how I really liked it, but naturally he was just making overtures for more serious work later. I wanted to go to the Edal's office in the hope of finding Andronicus. Thrills! He was there. Because the outcome of both case and emotional drama are more than telegraphed, the meandering investigation of the case often seems both half-hearted and half-witted, and it soon becomes a chore. The utter lack of urgency when the killer is identified allows them to escape more than once and is deeply frustrating. After identifying the killer, the investigators sit around to compare notes rather than to try to arrest them. When Flavia reveals the identity of the killer, it turns out that the vigils have already solved the case, making her entire involvement feel unnecessary. The investigation then seems to descend into farce. At first, I couldn't work out why they weren't actually out looking for the perpetrator. Then, when they did eventually go looking, it's revealed they knew where the killer was, so they didn't need to, so why were they wandering around looking? However, their inaction predictably allows them to escape, as mentioned. There follows a religious procession that descends even further into farce. Two of the investigators, seemingly not bothered by the fact that there is a killer in the neighbourhood, find time to make out in a stairway in a scene that would seem juvenile attached to a teenager's homework. The bodyguards, equally unconcerned, decide to fight with each other for reasons that seem muddled. Marcia stumbled tipsily and fell against Chloe. Zoe took that wrongly. Always pugnacious, she cursed and flew at Chloe, who had the sense to give Marcia a shove well out of the way. What makes this even worse is that Chloe has the murderer in a headlock at the beginning of the scene, and of course this hilarious nonsense, allows them to escape again. Perhaps if Pratchett or Sharp had written this, then it would work, but the farce seems to go against the established tone of Flavia's unfocused but grim musings. As mentioned, Flavia considers herself raised by wild dogs. I had lived on the streets of the town I was born in, scavenging with feral dogs. They were kinder to me than most humans. She is also revealed down the line as the victim of a sexual assault, which does go some way to explaining why this novel is absolutely obsessed with rape, molestation, and generally any kind of sexual assault you can include in a book without being labelled obscene. Nothing is graphic, but anyone looking for a light-hearted Roman romp should probably look elsewhere. Flavia judges everyone and everywhere by the likelihood of a sexual assault taking place. I know that you cannot possibly imagine any circumstances where this would actually be a thing, so here are some examples. Page 20, he hadn't bet on as many dud horses and screwed as many altar boys as he was hoping for. Page 27, female clients trusted me. They shied off male informers who had a reputation for groping and worse indecency. Page 44, an exchange of dialogue. No mistress then. He never even fingers the maid who makes his bed. Page 76, I exposed a doctor who drugged his women patients and interfered with them. Page 78, his mother must have managed everything: food, dress, hygiene, keeping him occupied, keeping his sexuality in check. Page 106, obviously he was wondering if he dared ask, any chance you could get your titties out? They're all the same, right down to the ghastly vocabulary. He only stopped himself because all the rest would have wanted a grope too. He was too mean to let his men have a go. Page 1112, sexual excitement, sad bastards spewing their seed on corpses who can't answer them back. Rape, he agreed, whether before or after death. It should be pointed out after this exchange of dialogue that none of the murders have any sexual motive whatsoever. Page 116, his father had somehow persuaded some woman to bear him at least 5 children. I decided that poor soul must be a slave who was not allowed to say no. Page 138, couple up with this woman you have never met. She's a nice sheltered virgin, only 12 years old. Which again is not true. The girl in question was 18 when she married, so why the insistence on paedophilia? After a while I did stop taking note of these because there was just so many. Page 278, all the audience is on the edge of their seats, hoping for a real rape of a real virgin. In my copy of the book, it actually says that the City of Rome gave Davis an award for representing Rome in a favourable light. Well, perhaps it's a little late now to ask for it back. This is not a depiction of Rome I would describe as favourable. I know it was a brutal time and a brutal city, but still, this is over the top. I don't think in the context it could be even particularly considered a realistic representation of the trauma of an abuse sufferer. Overall, the investigation into the murders barely occurs and consists of nothing more than visiting people and suggesting possible outcomes while ignoring the clues right in front of Flavia's face in order to drag out what should be a 100-page novella to 355 pages. There are moments where the satire is reminiscent of those early Falco books, such as this example from page 73. People who lived locally were keeping a sharp eye out for visitors, as they do when something odd has happened and they don't want to miss what follows. But these moments are rare. The dour tone, matched with the lack of any seriously considered investigation, coupled with the absence of the Falco personality to hold it all together, makes this largely a book about nothing and nobody. Die-hard fans of Davis will probably get out of it what they usually do, but more casual fans will just be reminded of how far she's fallen from the peak of her powers, having developed neither as a writer or an imaginative creator of mysteries. In good conscience, there isn't a soul on the planet I could recommend this to, and if somebody, having read it, recommended it to me, I would have to assume it was their intent to insult me. Thank you for watching my review of Ides of April by Lindsey Davis. I have lots more content, including book reviews and other things for you to check out on my channel if you wish. Additionally, YouTube gives you options for liking, for comments, subscribing, ringing the bells. All of those things are there for you to use as you see fit. And I'll see you in the next one.